Russia reports that over 6 days, from January 4 to 10, a total of 11 Ukrainian tanks were destroyed, 4 of which were German-made Leopards. At least 40 armored personnel carriers, APCs, were also taken out following a Russian attack in the area of the village of Dachenko, Pokrovsk direction. The units of the Central Group of Forces continued advancing deep into the enemy's defense and liberated the village of Dachenko, reads a press release from the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation. According to the Russian military, units from 7 mechanized brigades, 2 motorized infantry brigades, 1 ranger brigade, 2 airborne brigades of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, 1 marine brigade, 2 territorial defense brigades, a National Guard brigade, and a National Police Brigade of Ukraine were destroyed. 94 attempts by Ukrainian Armed Forces units to regain lost positions were thwarted, Moscow stated. The press release also lists the losses of the Ukrainian armed forces in this region and the continued battles for the village of Dachenko. Ukrainian armed forces losses amount to over 3,485 servicemen, 11 tanks, including 4 Leopard tanks made in Germany, 40 armored fighting vehicles, including 3 VAB armored personnel carriers made in France, as well as US-made equipment, 6 M113 armored transporters, an M1117 armored personnel carrier, Max Pro armored vehicles, and HMMWVs. A total of 41 vehicles and 34 field artillery pieces were destroyed, the Russian Ministry of Defense reports. German Leopards are the most frequently supplied NATO tanks to Ukraine. A significant number of them are the 2A4 variants, produced during the late 1980s and early 1990s. They are often described as the pinnacle of tank development from the Cold War era. The original Leopard 2A4 has a Rheinmetall L-44 smoothbore gun of 120mm caliber, 2 7.62mm machine guns and a smoke grenade launcher. It has a 1,500 horsepower engine, allowing the crew to reach speeds of up to approximately 70 km per hour, 43 miles per hour, on paved surfaces. According to Ukrainian soldiers, Leopard 2A4 tanks offer good mobility, maneuverability, and superior firepower compared to most post-Soviet and some Russian tanks, partly due to an effective EMES-15 fire control system with thermal imaging. According to Business Insider, at least 40 German-made Leopard battle tanks have been lost by the Ukrainian military since the conflict began. These figures are based on information provided by the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense, which regularly updates the public on the condition of its military equipment. However, Russian outlets, including Top War, believe that the actual losses may be much higher than officially reported. These Russian sources claim that Ukrainian estimates omit information from Russian military reports. According to Russian claims, dozens of Leopard tanks were destroyed in Ukraine's recent counter-offensive. This was part of a larger offensive that made extensive use of anti-tank missiles and drones, with reports indicating that these systems were used to target Ukraine's armored vehicles. While the Leopard tanks are praised for their firepower and mobility, they are far from impenetrable. Western analysts emphasize that these tanks, like all military equipment, are vulnerable to well-coordinated anti-tank strikes, including those carried out by drones. These tanks, despite being considered top-tier in their class, have faced significant challenges on the battlefield due to the high-intensity conditions. In response to these significant losses, the Ukrainian military has had to take additional precautions to protect its remaining tanks. This includes installing additional protective systems designed specifically to defend against drone attacks. According to estimates, each of these defense kits costs around $20,000, adding a significant financial burden to Ukraine's already limited resources. These additional protective measures are not only necessary to prevent further losses, but also part of Ukraine's larger efforts to keep its tanks operational for as long as possible. Furthermore, reports from Germany indicate that Ukrainian forces have attempted to repair Leopard tanks directly on the battlefield rather than returning them to specialized repair facilities. According to German military experts, these field repairs are frequently ineffective because they do not use the full range of required tools and parts, which are only available at specialized repair facilities. This is a critical issue because it reduces the tank's combat effectiveness and may cause additional mechanical failures, leaving them vulnerable to future attacks. These challenges have placed Ukraine in a difficult position, both in terms of financial capacity and military readiness. While the country continues to lose significant amounts of military hardware, it must also manage the high costs of repairs and defensive upgrades. This ongoing cycle threatens Ukraine's long-term ability to maintain armored forces in the conflict. By October 2024, Ukraine had received around 192 Leopard tanks from Western partners, including both the Leopard 1 and the more modern Leopard 2. These tanks have been viewed as critical components of Ukraine's strategy, but their continued presence on the battlefield carries significant risks. According to reports, despite a steady supply of these tanks, their vulnerability to modern anti-tank systems may necessitate additional deliveries. The issue of whether the logistics for maintaining and upgrading these tanks are adequate remains critical.